The Brazilian Air Force is the air branch of the Brazilian Armed Forces and one of the three national uniformed services. The FAB was formed when the Army and Navy Air Branch were merged into a single military force. Initially called National Air Forces, in 1941, both air branches transferred their equipment, installations and personnel to the new force. According to the Flight International and the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the Brazilian Air Force has an active strength of 80,937 military personnel and operates around 715 aircraft. The Brazilian Air Force is the largest air force in the Southern Hemisphere and the second largest in the Americas after the United States Air Force. The Contestado War was the first conflict in which Brazilian military aviation was employed. On September 19, 1914, taking advantage of a special train driving troops, 3 aircraft were boarded, a Maran Saulnier biplace, a Maran Saulnier monoplace and a Blitzer Sid biplace. The train continued from Rio de Janeiro passing through São Paulo where it would reach the São Paulo-Rio Grande Railway to the station of União da Vitória. Along the way, sparks shot through the locomotive, hitting a gallon of gasoline in one of the wagons carrying the dismantled aircraft. The fire spread, much like the planes. After the crash, only the Maran Saulnier remained in flying condition. In the conflict zone, he coordinated the construction of runways and hangars to be used in União da Vitória, Canoinhas and Rio Negro. Then, 2 Maran Saulnier and special ammunition were brought from Rio de Janeiro, as well as a mechanic. The first aerial activity occurred only on January 4, 1915. When a training flight followed the course of the Iguacu River to the Timbo River. The first official mission took place on January 19 and the duration of the flight was just over an hour. The following week, on February 25, 1915, a Maran Saulnier had an accident. During a test flight in the vicinity of the field, the engine stopped and aircraft crashed with total loss. Pilots survived. March 1, 1915 was the scheduled date for a heavy attack on the rebels. The mission was to fly over the valley of Santa Maria, to launch bombs on the rebels' stronghold, and to observe and direct the shots of the artillery in the advance of the infantry. 2 Maran Saulnier aircraft took off, but the attack was cancelled due to adverse weather conditions. Aircraft piloted by then Lieutenant Aviator Ricardo Kirk suffered a crash and fell victim to fatally. Ricardo Kirk was the first Brazilian military aviator. In 1891 he entered the military academy and he was promoted to ensign in November 1893 and to first lieutenant in March 1898 and posthumously to captain in 1915. Aviation had its important role in the war. Although the two sides in struggle had few airplanes, the federal government had approximately 58 aircraft divided between the Navy and the Army. On the other hand, the Paulistas had only 2 Pates and 2 Waco planes, in addition to a small number of tourist planes. At the end of July, the rebel government obtained another device, brought by Lieutenant Artur Mota Lima, who defected from Campo dos Afonsos in Rio de Janeiro. The Reds, as the federal government planes were known, not only acted on the lines of combat, but also were used to bombard several cities of São Paulo, among them Campinas, where they caused great damage. They also served as a propaganda weapon, dropping leaflets on enemy cities and into rebel concentration camps. For the use of aerial means, General Góes Monteiro had in his staff of 2 advisors, Captains Vasco Alves Seco and Carlos Pfalzgraf Brazil, Major Eduardo Gomes, commander of the Joint Aviation Group, who since the outbreak of hostilities had coordinated the employment of his unit and the reinforcements of the Military Aviation School, was designated, on September 16, commander of the air units of the Army Detachment of the East. On September 6, Major Ajelma Vieira Mascarenhas was appointed commander of the air units of the detachment of the Southern Army. The Navy's aircraft were under the direct operational control of the naval authorities, operating in support of the surface ships deployed near the port of Santos to effect a naval blockade and also in support of the naval flotilla of Mato Grosso. based in Ladario. They also participated in operations with military aviation in the Paraiba Valley and on the Southern Front. In escort and observation missions, the Air Force of Sao Paulo was bundled into the hands of Major Ivo Borges, commander of the aviation units of the Constitutionalist Aviation, and Major Licious A. Rodriguez, commander of the Constitutionalist Aviation Group. The establishment of the United Kingdom's Royal Air Force in April 1918, and the creation of the Italian Air Force and the French Air Force during the 1920s drove the idea of uniting Brazilian air power under the same organization. Together with